Dun, 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 dun. This is the Commercial Property Investing Explained series, brought to you by Steve Palise. Find out how commercial property really works and start investing like the pros. Your education starts now. Doom, 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 doom. I'll do the next bit. Welcome back to the Commercial Property Investing Explained series. Bit of a different one here. I'm your host, Steve Palise, and I'm here with a very special guest. This guy made $2.3 million in less than 12 months with almost no money down. He's usually the Wizard of Oz behind the microphone, but today he's front row and center as my guest. Andrew Bean, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, mate. This is fun being on this side of the table. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know, the rule is we're doing this one on self-storage. It's the only one for the whole year. You get to talk about it. So use the microphone well, mate.
Mate, I'm still like, this is a perpetuating thing that you're making up this thing that I always talk about self-storage. And I actually never talk about self-storage. It's you that talks about self-storage more than I do.
You know what the best part is? Like our listeners and even some of our guests now take the piss a little bit of it as well. And it's like, this is an ongoing thing for you.
Do you know how many people have like, when I get an email, they're like, oh yeah, stop talking about self-storage. Ha ha ha. I'm like, I have to dude, it's Steve that talks about me talking about self-storage.
Well, your partner told me you do it in the bedroom as well.
She does hear about self-storage quite a lot. She zones out so she doesn't have to listen. But
you even brought her to a self-storage conference recently as well, haven't you?
I did. I had to really get her, sell it to her. Like, it's on the Gold Coast. It's gonna be really fun near the beaches. And she was into it for like the first day, but it was like a 4-day conference. And by the second day, she was done.
Yeah, and you had dinner with a very special person, basically one of the founders of the early self-storage.
Yeah, I got to meet the man himself, Sam Kennard, billionaire, 43rd richest man in Australia. So that was really fun, really cool to see. Super humble guy. He's really just so down to earth for someone. And it's funny, I think most billionaires or a lot of billionaires, you're just really unassuming. He was just wearing, normal, joggers and jeans. And if you didn't know he was a billionaire, you would never have picked it.
Yeah, you're not actually the first person that said that. My mate, because I did robotics at university, one of my mates is head of engineering for Kennards. And he says the same thing all the time. Like, he just talks him up massively, been like, this guy's actually a nice guy, a normal, humble guy. So
yeah, he's super
that's
chill.
Rare, I think.
Yeah, he's done really well. So, and there's no slowing down for him either. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, cool, man. Do you want to ask me about what I'm up to? And I'll just mention the spider bite or something, just so it's something a bit different. Yeah.
So, mate, I'm going to try and steal the reins back a little bit from this podcast. But how are you going, mate? I want to hear about your life a little bit.
Yeah, I'm good, man. As you know, I missed our day in the city, our work day, because my child got bitten by a spider. So off to the GP with her foot swollen about 3 times the size, but got her on the antihistamine. She's back to normal, which is nice. So back at it, just plugging deals. We're doing what we're doing and find some cracking deals at work.
Did the doctor give you an indication of what type of spider it was?
No, they got no idea, because it's just I think unless it's going to be deadly, there's no point looking into it. They give you antihistamines, they gave us antibiotics if it kind of flared up. I imagine if it got worse, I'd probably would have to go to the hospital and they might have looked at it, but it's just the 2 little prong marks and a big swollen foot. So yeah, she's back on the mend, which is good.
Yeah, not what you want in your child, but you did well to get there.
Part of Australia, whenever I tell all my UK friends, they're actually flabbergasted. They're like, what? Bloody Australia?
That's awesome.
Anyway, so today we're chatting about an amazing self-storage deal you just completed in Wollongong. So do you want to start by, maybe we've touched on it before, but do you want to maybe start out on why self-storage? Give the listener what you like about self-storage.
Well, for me, self-storage really hits all of the fundamentals that lower the risk. It gives me the opportunity to add value. I'm never at complete there's never ever a chance that I can have complete vacancy. So it hits a lot of the fundamentals for me. There's a lot of bad things though that about self-storage that you probably don't know about, or you don't know about until you've really started managing it. But one of the big fundamentals for me is the biggest risk in commercial property is vacancy. So when you have, a good size of a facility, say I have 150 people on site, there's never any chance of complete vacancy, right?
Yeah.
No matter what happens. So you can mitigate that risk. The second biggest risk in commercial property is single tenancy risk. So obviously, being that I have 150 tenants, that removes that risk. So I've got 150 tenants. Multi-tenanted commercial property is by far one of the best ways to mitigate against vacancy in future. And one of the main things that I like about self-storage is that I can change and add value to the property basically on day one, because it's not a long-term lease on the properties, on the units. It is a month-to-month agreement. So as long as they've been there for the first month, then I can change the value very quickly. And that's my whole investment thesis, is I need to take properties and I need to add so much value to them that it's going to take massive chunks out of my long-term goal. Because I have some very, very big long-term aspirations to control and own a lot of real estate. And I'm making some good headwind into that, or tailwind into that at the moment. But ultimately, I like to take something that is a underperforming business or an underperforming asset, and I like to basically double the value of it. And that gives you huge leaps forward in your life, and basically gives you like freedom.
Yeah, one of the things I actually learned from you, because I never really, before meeting you, I never really thought about self-storage besides it being a good multi-tenancy investment. But the demand for self-storage is actually going up in Australia. Whereas previously I was just like, oh yeah, it's self-storage, nothing too exciting about it. But yeah, you've pointed out to me that demand's gone up, we're becoming more consumerized and buying more and more stuff, and we need more storage.
Well, there are so many good things about it that I actually forgot to mention that just then.
Yeah.
So the demand, like, because industrial property in itself has huge demand. It has the best fundamentals of any sector in Australia, in the world right now going forward, because of the way that we operate, the way that we've changed, the way that we buy things, the way that we do things. And self-storage is actually a distant cousin of industrial property, that basically everything we're doing in the society, we need more stuff. Stuff is meant to break. We have a lot of baby boomers that are retiring. They have a lot of stuff. They're downsizing. More businesses are utilizing self-storage. I have umpteen businesses that come in every single day. They pick up their gear. They go out. They do their work. They come back, drop off their stuff. There's not too many. I can't think of any real bad things about self-storage, in terms of the fundamentals, of why the asset class wouldn't be moving forward. Now, self-storage, actually, I can think of one of the bad things. One of the worst things about self-storage is that it can be significantly oversupplied if people aren't doing the right research and people are just jumping in to develop it. That's one of the bad things.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because one of the funny things is, whenever I'm doing strategy calls with clients, they always go, oh, cool, find me a self-storage facility. I want that. And I'm like, hold on, because I think we've sugarcoated a little bit. Like, they don't realize you've been researching self-storage, 7 years or something ridiculous? Like, it's not a just jump into it, you'll be fine. But how did you do the research originally? Because there's commercial, there's nothing out there. So I only imagine self-storage was even less.
Well, there's nothing out there in Australia. So if you go to America, and I'm basically a lot of the research and understanding I have about commercial property comes from American investors. I don't know what it is, but America just seems to be light years ahead of content creation, basically putting together deals creatively and stuff like that. So there are some really good people in America that I've learned from. I've read so many books. I've listened to so many podcasts, watched so many videos. Like, it's just an ongoing thing. I mean, I've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and I've been in the commercial game for, 8 to 10 years. And I've really niched down to self-storage probably 3 to 4 years ago, where I realized that was the best avenue for me right now, and it's the best opportunity that I see. And this is only my investment thesis for now. I am going to there's going to be a day when self-storage potentially is oversupplied in a lot of markets, and I'll be going down different avenues. Because self-storage is a business that operates in a real estate asset, you have high business returns, and the business actually affects how good you are at the management of the business. That affects the value of the real estate. So it gives you so many more levers and buttons to pull to add value. You know what I mean? So
Well,
like,
you're winning on both sides. You're making business profit,
yeah,
and you're also making obviously the lease profit of obviously
yeah,
being the owner of the business as well.
yeah.
So yeah, there's two big levers you can pull: property owner and business owner.
Yeah. So the problem when you're going into like a value add strategy with a standard commercial property, whether it being industrial, retail, or office, is that you have a long-term lease and you only really have one opportunity to increase the rates. And when I talk about value add, I really mean finding an opportunity where the rates are a lot lower than what the current market rates are, because
Yeah,
then I can increase those for free, right? Because that's the easiest way to do it. It doesn't cost any money. It's really the finding the opportunity and getting it under contract for the right price is really the hard work. And then executing the value add strategy is basically telling the manager, the property manager, hey, can you lift these rates up to market rate when you can?
yeah,
In a standard commercial property, you have to wait a long time to do that, and you only have one shot.
yeah,
Whereas with self-storage, I can do it on day one, and I can do it over a large scale of tenants, which significantly changes the value. So like for this Wollongong deal, like I was literally changing the rates from say $280 for this is a 6 by 4 meter garage to $580 for like one tenant.
yeah.
And then I did that at scale for over 150 tenants, all varying like rate increases. Which, people are very upset with you for doing that because it sounds like a lot. But
Yeah.
realistically, you've had a great deal for so long and you've been paying such a cheap rate for so long. You should be thanking the old owner. And now you actually come in and this is the true price that you should be paying.
It's
Um,
it's one of those ones where it happened in every industry. Like the residential market, everyone was getting up in arms about their rent increasing, but they didn't have
yeah.
any rental increase for a few years. Same as industrial, it's grown by 30-40%. So it's the same effect. I think because yours is more smaller business and consumer, they're more emotional about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it sounds like a lot. So if I'm going, say a $200 increase in 1 month, it sounds like a lot, but realistically, that's only $50 a week extra. But if that's the actual going rate for that size unit in that market, in that localized market, then where you can't go anywhere to get a cheaper rate. So you're still actually winning. And I don't go above and beyond the rates. I actually go about $50 below where the big boys are putting their rates. So your Kennards, your Storage King, your Nationals.
Mhm.
And I just ride their coattails. So I
Yep.
just find the most underperforming business or asset in the market, and then I move the rates up to where they should be, and I create millions of dollars in
Yeah.
equity straight away.
All right. So maybe let's go into that. Do you want to maybe start off, give us the kind of general overview of the deal, how much you bought it for, what's it worth now, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I bought this particular property very creatively. So I didn't I didn't go into it putting down, millions of dollars to secure it and then do the value add strategy. I did it in reverse so it would be easier to finance down the line. So the way that I did this, and this all comes down to my skills and real estate that I've stacked up so over so many years of research,
Yeah.
right? So instead of putting an offer down to just buy it, I actually put the property under an option agreement, a call option, which means that I had the right to buy the property for a certain period of time. Now, I negotiated, I'm going to put down $150,000 of non-refundable cash, right? So I couldn't get this back regardless. So that was my risk,
Yeah.
150K. And I had the rights to buy the property for 12 months. Now, what the significant part of that was is that I negotiated that as soon as I had that option start, I took over the management. And because I know how, and I've done it before for other clients and customers and things like that, I know how to run self-storage facilities efficiently, putting technology, cameras, making it efficient follow-ups and increasing rates. So this is an active business that I was doing for 12 months. This isn't like I just increased the rates and bang, I've got $2 million of equity.
Yeah.
It's I worked this property for literally 12 months every single day. It was my blood, sweat, and tears were in this property. literally. And you really have to understand how to manage a self-storage facility to do this efficiently, right? So the way that it worked is that I took over the management, and the great thing about this is I can start building equity in the property without actually owning it. That when I purchase the property, the equity is already there, right?
Yeah.
And what I did around the 9-month mark, I had the property valuation ready. So I had a valuer come in at the 9-month mark. And because I increased the rates so dramatically, and I did some light renovations to, there's a 2-bedroom apartment on site, and the old tenant, the old owner used to live there, so he didn't rent that out. So I did a light renovation on the 2-bedroom apartment, which was, I think it was about like 20 something thousand dollars I spent. And all the money I spent on this property came from the property. So it wasn't coming from my pocket again. That was probably part of the real crux of it as well, is that I was using cash only that was created by this property. So I did a light renovation on the 2-bedroom apartment, then got that tenanted out for an extra $27,000 per year, which all goes towards the value and the capitalization rate. I also increased, I have a bulk tenant there. So I have a bulk warehouse that's about 150 square meters. And I basically increased that tenancy. I think it was they were paying about 150 a square meter, and I increased it to 250 a square meter, which was in line with industrial property in Wollongong. So that was a massive increase as well. And then I also installed 10 more units on the first floor, which was a massive increase as well. And I think that cost about $17,000 to install, and that was a huge value add as well. So all of this stacking up, I'm just stacking up more net income and more net income and more net income. So it's undeniable that this property had more value in it. Like, if anyone understands the way that commercial property works, net income, the way that it works is that the net income is derived, like the value is derived by the net income divided by the cap rate. So if you increase the net income, the value has to go up. It's like the law of gravity. You cannot deny that the value has gone up if the net income has gone up. That's why commercial property is so valuable. So I focused on that, and I changed the income from the property from about $260,000 to now grossing over $500,000. So it was like I basically doubled the revenue, right?
So what was the net yield on purchase price when you got it versus the net yield on purchase price when you're finished?
Oh, the net yield on when I purchased it, it was like 4.5%. It was really, really low. And that didn't matter to me because of the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
If it was a set and forget property, then that's crazy low. And industrial in Wollongong, you would be expecting around a 5 cap. That's what it trades at, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very, very low return at the start if I left it there. And how I was able to put it under option, then manage the property and then increase the rates, now it's actually a 9% return.
Yeah.
So
was the premise of the owner selling to you because if theoretically you've paid a little bit of a premium for
I
it,
did.
knowing the opportunity cost was
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
So to get the deal under my terms, I actually paid $700,000 more for this property.
Yeah.
Right. And that people will go like, oh my God, that you've overpaid for it. But did I? Like,
No,
I made $2.3 million out of it. Like I'm not being, you don't have to be greedy here, but when you're making multi-million dollars of profit out of it, you can pay what really makes sense.
You have to pay that because they're not going to accept an option at market price because
that's right.
What's the point? And I think that's the point when people are, for the listeners, if you are putting an option on something, it has to be somewhat attractive for the seller. So you normally minimum have to pay market price. Otherwise, why would they sell it to you?
That's right. And I made the deal so good for every single party, including the agents, including the other parties in it. So like win-win, so awesome that they felt stupid saying no. Right. So as part of this deal, I actually also paid the owner $80,000 like over the whole life of the option, and I paid him on a monthly basis as well. So that worked out to be about $7,000 per month that I was paying him out of the business revenue. So he was very happy with that. And because I actually paid more for the property, and the owner was like, well, hang on, if you're paying more for the property, I'm going to need to pay the agent more commission, right?
Yeah.
So as part of that, I was like, yeah, that's no problem. I'll cover that. So I paid the difference to the agent for the commission.
That one surprises me because it's almost like when people go, oh, I don't want to earn more income because I pay more tax. It's the same thing. He's like, oh, I don't want to sell it to you too high. I'll have to pay an agent more.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, a baffling concept that would even be a thing.
Yeah. So I made sure everyone in the whole deal knew what was going on. So if everyone knows what's going on, who's getting paid what, then there's no like, like handshake deals or like undercover stuff. So I basically went through my mind and said, what are the objections that are going to come across here? And I knew that objection was coming because if you pay $700,000 more, that's, going to be, a few $1,000s more do you have to pay the agent, right? So if I say
that doesn't bother me, like as someone who sells properties all the time, like that's part of life. They've got you a better price. Like they should be thankful for paying that. But you've obviously worked around. Was that just because the owner was an older owner who just kind of sees black and white a little bit?
Well, I mean, he's like, well, if I could get, because they had offers at 5 million, and I actually had an offer on it at 5 million originally. So this wasn't, I didn't go into this deal with this particular like framework in mind. I actually had a single money partner that I was working with, and we had the offer for 5 million accepted for a normal standard offer, right? And at the last minute, my money partner backed out for personal reasons. So I was like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure I can still get this deal done creatively if I just, think back to the skills that I have and the knowledge that I built up. How can I get this deal done so it makes sense for everyone? And that's how I came up with this plan. So I think it's very difficult to approach an agent and say, hey, I want to get a 12-month option on this property for X amount where I'm going to control the property for 12 months. You can't sell it to anyone else. And I'm going to make a shitload of money and you guys just got to sit there and hope that I can settle it.
Yeah. And so then the agent's not going to get paid if you crush and lose that 150 grand. Yeah. He doesn't get paid and he's back at square one. And no offense to agents, they want to earn as much money as they can as quick as they can.
Yeah. So you have to make sure, and the agent that I was working with, he was instrumental in like his understanding and willingness to delay getting paid. So he was really he was exceptional. And I think there was probably like a stars did align in a sense where I've been doing this so long, and this isn't the first time I've tried to do this. I've had many deals get very, very close and fall over, or I've put this to a lot of agents and nearly get it done, but ultimately like everyone had the same goal in mind. We want to get this property sold for the highest amount possible. And I put together a plan. I floated it with the agent, and then he ran with it. He basically took it as, his idea, and he was instrumental pitching it to the owner, which because I made it so win-win for everyone, as I said, they felt stupid saying no. And that's how you get deals done.
Yeah, we do the same thing in our development arm of Palise Property. Same thing for residential developments. If you can get like the deal done, most of the time it stems with the agent because they want to get the deal done. And if you pay a premium with the landowner, you can have a win-win for everyone. And that's how most developers work. But it's the first time I've actually seen it done in self-storage. Yeah,
well, that's right. And the only reason I was able to create this deal is because I knew I had so much value to add.
Yeah.
So when I actually assessed this, I actually assessed that I could take it to 9 million, right? And then what I didn't account for was the valuer putting in phantom expenses like a $60,000 salary for a staff member that's not actually there, because the property is managed remotely by myself and the management system. There's no staff, So because self-storage, typically when valuers did the, they learned how to be a valuer, there wasn't the type of technology that there is today, right? So you couldn't really have a manless self-storage facility. There had to be a staff member there. That's why most self-storage facilities have a bit of an office section or a manager's residence, because someone actually had to physically be there.
Yeah.
And you still have to have physical presence on the asset. This sounds all great and it's awesome, and self-storage is fantastic. But let me tell you, there's some bad parts. Let me tell you.
I want to quickly touch on the point though that you mentioned about the $60,000 for that. Normally, that wouldn't have been a problem if you were just buying this as an investment through traditional financing means. But because I know you were trying to basically do this with no money down, you needed the yield to stack up, which would then obviously translate into the valuation. So we could basically finance a deal without putting money down. If you'd bought this traditionally with like a lease stock and you had the deposit and that wouldn't be an issue. You still would have been a 4.5% yielding one to a 7.5% yielding deal, which is still a great outcome.
Yeah, well, you can't get a lease stock on a self-storage facility because there aren't any leases.
Yeah.
It's a 1 month agreement at scale. So, but yeah, you're right. So if I had have done this traditionally, I would have had to put about $2 million down to get it done, and no bank would have funded it because it didn't make sense.
Bit of a side question. How did you come up with the $150,000 basically non-refundable deposit? Was that just a gut feel, or was there a calculation behind it?
Well, the agent and I basically hashed it out. So, okay, what would we need? What does the owner need right now to move out of the self-storage facility, get established in a new rental property? And what does he need just now to keep him going for the 12 months? Yeah. So he had $150,000 cash, and then he also had $80,000 of revenue that I was going to give to him as well. So he had a good income coming in that basically it replicated exactly what the self-storage facility was giving him anyway. So he moved out for free, right, without doing the work.
So just touch on that. So the revenue, when you were increasing the rents, that revenue still goes to the owner and it only would switch, or would you take the difference?
No. So when you're doing an option, you are setting all of the values and the prices and the whatever you're doing with it. You're setting that as a locked-in price. Yep. So anything over and above that, it's my profit. So basically, the self-storage facility was doing about $20,000 per month, and that I accounted for giving some of that to the owner. I actually paid the owner. Also, was contracted to pay the owner's rental property as well. So there was a lot of this deal is hugely creative and massive. There was so many different aspects to it. There's actually 3 properties that were getting settled that were, and my self-storage facility was the catalyst of all the other properties getting settled along the way. So it's a very, very complicated creative deal.
With the cream on top. So when you've increased the rents and you're saying the 20,000 and you say you increase it to 30,000, whatever, for say 10 months, if you're getting that $10,000 extra per year in your pocket, that's effectively giving you a little bit of a safety net as well, because it's eroding the 150 grand deposit you put down.
That's right. So basically the self-storage facility was netting about $20,000 or grossing about $20,000 per month when I started the option. By, month 4, it was netting $45,000. Wow, so all the extra cash there, I was using to spend back on the property to fix all of the renovations on the apartment, the 10 units that I installed, and also giving me cash flow that was never mine. Yeah. You know what I mean? So this is all part of the making it so creative that you can really protect yourself from any kind of, danger in future. So this is all part of it. And you can only do this with a property that is a business, like a self-storage facility, like a motel, like a caravan park, where you can change the revenue significantly very, very quickly, right? You can't, if you did this in a normal industrial property, there's not enough cash flow to do this. That's the problem.
Yeah, you need a bigger bankroll, because we've done ones where it's like there's a big laydown yard or something next to the warehouse, and then you've got to kind of try to do the construction, get it done, then get it revalued. But there's more money in that. But for this one, so you 150 grand, how much on renos? General overall, minus the extra cash you got from the revenue, how much did you have to put in? Was it 200 grand, 250 grand?
So I spent $150,000 on the option fee, and then I put in 100, and then I used the business revenue, which then was about $110,000 of capex over the whole 12 month option.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't my money. It was just money that came from the self-storage facility from me increasing the rates.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's the crux of it. Is like it wasn't actually coming from money that I was like actively working for, actively came out of my savings or bankroll. You know, it
Mm.
was the self-storage facility was self-funding the self-storage facility, which was what I negotiated into it. Right.
Mm.
So all of the expenses that I would have from the property were actually part of the revenue from the property already, and I negotiated that in at the start, knowing that they would be there. Because you can really like because when you walk a property and you see there's locks on the door and you see what the actual opportunity is, how much revenue it's possibly producing, you can quite easily understand where the property is, what it's producing today, and then what it could produce tomorrow if you overlay your prices on top of it as well. So
Yeah.
that's the thing with commercial property in general. It's you can calculate it.
Yeah.
It's not like a residential property that it's on hopes and dreams or a very emotional kind of state of what you think the value should be. It's just a pure calculation with a commercial property.
Yeah. Well, one of the funny things I found, so actually, if you're interested on our YouTube channel, we've done like a big walkthrough of the facility. So we've got like a 30-minute YouTube, and I'll get
Yeah.
Andrew to chuck that in the show notes as well if you want to click that. But when I said, how are they managing the property? And you pulled out these old folders where people were filling in these little handwritten documents, and there wasn't like last names, phone numbers, addresses, or it was just like little handshake agreements.
Yeah, I mean this old owner, he was managing the property with a ledger. So every single time, every single customer had a card in the folder, and every time they would pay, he would you know write on the card and balance the account on that Manila card,
Yeah.
which is terribly like it was a big job. No wonder he didn't want to do it anymore because it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And I was able to remove that by putting in my management system, putting in my technology to streamline it all. And he had to manually raise he had 130 tenants, so he had to manually raise 100 or so invoices every single month, whereas
Yeah.
my system does it automatically.
Yeah. It's baffling now that anyone does anything by hand. Like,
Yeah.
but again, like you said, he's a bit older. He lived on the complex as well, didn't he? And he was basically sat there all day, every day. Even
Yeah.
had a chicken coop, which you removed.
Yeah. So all he really cared about, and he's a top bloke. I still talk to him to this day. He was happy if he had enough money for his smokes and scotch. He'd potter around the backyard. He had a little garden with a chicken coop, and he had his dogs on site. He did really well. Like he actually purchased the property like for only $2 million.
Yeah.
So
Right.
he created huge value in it, and he did a massive renovation on the first floor, and I just extended what he'd already done. So he actually put in about 50 units upstairs that would have changed the value considerably. But then he left a massive area for himself for like a big attic. Steve, you saw it. It's a huge space, and it was just filled with junk and crap and like all this stuff that he's collected over the years from evicting people and stuff. So he did really well, and this property, it's a generational type asset, right? So right now it's worth $8 million. Once I keep on increasing the income, and right now I've increased the income again from tenants, but instead of being a $200 increase, it's only like a $10 or $5 increase now. So it's just keeping up with inflation. This particular asset will easily be worth $10-15 million in 20, 30 years, easily.
Yeah.
By just managing it.
It's a blue chip location with a huge land banking portion. Like it's a big parcel of land in a prime spot in Australia.
Yeah, it's 3,000 square meters in a thick, dense residential area that is actually zoned industrial right next to the Princess Highway. So it's like the freehold itself is worth $7 million. And the business was valued at $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where the valuation came from. They value the freehold, and then you also have a valuation on the business, and then they put those together, and that's where you get the $8 million from.
Yeah, but you also did like creative things as well. Like I remember, like you updated the marketing. You even had like highway advertising, billboards and stuff. It wasn't just let's buy this and bump up all the rents will be sweet.
No, it's a complete business turnaround. That's what I'm doing. It's not the real estate is the icing on the cake, having the real estate. but I'm really doing a business turnaround, like
Yeah.
Gordon Ramsay does with the kitchens, Kitchen Nightmare.
Yeah.
You're really taking a business, you're seeing the fundamental like principles that aren't being done, like advertising, Google ads, having a good website, being able to book online, things like that I introduced that just made it a lot easier for customers to find the facility. Having a good Google business profile, asking for reviews. You'd be
Yeah.
unbelievable how many reviews you can get if you just ask the customer after you've given them great service, could you give me a review? They're like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So it's all those little things that baby boomers and stuff, especially people who have been doing it for a long time. And the thing is that he was making so much money. Like he was
Yeah.
making $20,000 from doing pretty much not much all day, and it was enough.
But
So
that's the premise of property as well. And like you said, in like 10 years' time, like this is probably going to be worth 15 mil, and the rents have all doubled as well. So as long as you keep the same debt now, like to be honest, this has actually struck the chord the most with me. Like you told me when it settled, like you shed a tear and you're like, I've just changed my family's future for the rest of my
yeah,
life.
yeah, I cried because it was like I've been working so hard for so long to do this for so long.
Yeah.
And when you finally get that, because I could have bought so many different properties that are cheaper and lower value, but it wouldn't actually have changed my life or actually done what I wanted it to do. So I need to buy massive like properties that have huge value that I can add huge value to. If you're buying a $300,000, $800,000 warehouse, it's very, very difficult to add such significant value to, because there is a relationship to what the property is worth to how much value percentage wise you can add to it. So realistically, like up to about 30 or 40% value you could possibly add to a property comfortably if you have the right knowledge, the right skills, the right opportunity, right? So the premise of this as well is that I took a $5 million property, and that's how I created so much value in it. If you took $1 million property, I could have created percentage-wise the same thing, but it wouldn't have translated to millions of dollars.
It's funny because you've actually told me this on one of the very early podcast episodes, and it's actually resonated with me since, is if you're going to work hard on something, why not work on something that actually gives you a good return?
Yeah, that's
Because,
right.
like, why think small? The effort's the same there. You're still going to work big 10, 12-hour days. Why not do it on something that translates to actually real wealth?
Yeah, so it comes down to the business is hard. Any business is hard. If you're going to be doing and grafting and trying so hard, you might as well do it in a massive billion-dollar opportunity rather than doing it for a local cafe or like a business that has no opportunity to be a billion-dollar empire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just, business is hard. Like it is. Like it's just, you have to do so much these days with content to get customers. It's not easy.
Yeah. Even that, I always laugh at the memes on social media where it's like every business owner nowadays has to be a social media expert, which is true. You don't get by without it.
Yeah.
But actually on that, do you want to maybe give us a run through what was the hardest things about this self-storage facility? Like what was the things like you wish you maybe, I don't know, you didn't expect, or the time efforts, or what was the hardest thing for you?
Well, even though I created so much value and I needed the property to be such a great deal for the bank that they'd feel silly for saying no as well. And that's what I did. But you would know as well, is any kind of commercial financing is difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy. This took 4 to 5 months to get a deal of to get a bank, over the line to do it. So it was very, very difficult for the financing part of it. And self-storage is more difficult than a standard commercial property anyway, because
specialized
banks don't particularly like self-storage facilities. So you can only get a lend up to 60% LVR on the actual property, right? So that's a very, very difficult part. One of the other massive difficult things about the property is that running a self-storage facility is difficult. It is sometimes. It's very easy when everything's going right, but if someone moves out and they do a runner and they leave their junk there, someone has to remove it. Someone has to get rid of it so you can turn around that unit, right? So every single week, I do lock audits. So I go around the property, I see which units are locked and make sure it matches up to what the system is saying, right? Sometimes there's not a lock on there, or sometimes someone hasn't paid. You have to evict people. There's been lots of times where I had to basically retrain all the tenants to be good tenants and pay on time, because the old owner didn't have any real notification follow-up system.
Yeah.
So like you have to retrain the tenants that you actually do need to pay on time. Otherwise you will cop a late fee. And so that's the hard part. And then, every single week getting yelled at by someone who's really upset with you because you've increased the rates to fair market rate, like, $200, $300 more than what they were paying. I've been called greedy. I've been called, this is unbelievably unfair. Like I've been called effing, this and this on the phone. And when they actually say this rate increase is massive, and I'm like, all I could say is, I agree with you. It is. It's massive. It is.
It also means you've saved a lot of money over the past few years, so you're actually ahead.
Yeah. But they don't. You can't.
They don't say that. I know.
Yeah, they never justify that. But so the angry calls, and like it's all comes with the territory of increasing rates on people. Like as the landlord, it's only fair that I should be able to charge fair market rates. It's not my fault that the rates are where they are, but it is like my property, and I need to be able to charge fair market rates because it's a business, right?
Yeah.
But and some people, like, we're going through a difficult time too. So this particular opportunity was done, through inflationary periods. Everyone was, under the living expenses crunch. So it wasn't like particularly good times to be increasing the rates. But also on that, this opportunity really came up because of the increased interest rates. And so it looked like more of a bad market coming through now. So like over like the last 10 years, property has been so like on fire. Everything's been booming. We've had 2% interest rates and under. Every man and his dog has been going after real estate. So there's no opportunity to do things creatively, right? To get a great deal, to do this. So when no one else is interested in a property, and this property was online. Like I found this property listed, and I rang the agent, and it had been listed for a couple of weeks. And I rang the agent and I said, because I've been looking for this opportunity for so long, as soon as I saw it, I knew. Like I know what I'm looking for. I rang the agent and I said, I'm coming to inspect the property today. Do not accept any other offers. I am your man. I am going to buy this property. And I was there with him like the next day. But because we had gone to a higher interest rate environment, like sellers, the actual self-storage operator was like, okay, maybe we're going into a bad market here, and I need to sell this. I need to get out now.
Yeah. One of the points you mentioned about how like the consumer gets upset, and funnily enough, I used to sort of empathize quite a lot with that before I was a business owner.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is the business owner also needs to be profitable, because if they're not, the service doesn't exist. And I have that as well. Like obviously because of inflation, I've got to pay on my staff an extra 5, 10, 15%.
Yeah.
So if I'm not increasing my fees, I'm actually lost. Most businesses operate on like a 30% profit margin.
Yeah.
Just pay all your staff 10, 15% more. You're dwindling that. So you got to remember the business owner also needs to be profitable. Otherwise, the service doesn't even exist.
100%. You need to have excess funds to be able to take care of security, take care of maintenance, potentially pay staff, whatever it is. And there are big interest costs on this property. Like it's a 7% interest.
Yeah.
It's $30,000 interest repayments every single month that come out of this property. It's cash flow positive, so it doesn't really bother me. But there are huge like payments that need to go out. So you need to charge the right rates. I need to make sure that there is money coming in.
Do you think because it's self-storage, it's not like where there's a warning or alarm bell for them that it's actually increasing? Whereas like typically if you've got like a 3-year lease, the property manager will probably tell them 6 months prior, hey, look, we're going to be upping the rent, etc. So there's a bit more kind of period to prepare themselves mentally, but obviously on month to month, it's a bit more of a shock.
Well, self-storage, if you're doing, if you're abiding by the self-storage agreement by the Self-Storage Association, which is I'm a member of, you have to give them 28 days notice for any rental increase.
Yeah.
So they get 28 days to know, and they get notified by a email and also a text that it's going up. And they can stay or they can go. It's really up to them. So the way that I like to do it is I mitigated the risk. So I only increase the rates on 10 to 15 customers each month. So if and I was expecting to lose 30% every single time, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
But the people that stayed, their rates increased so dramatically that it covered the people that left by a long shot. And then I also had more product to rent out. So self-storage is actually a retail business. I'm selling you 3 walls and a roller door, different sizes according to what product you need.
I think that would scare a lot of people where you up it and they leave like, oh no,
Yeah.
have I done the wrong thing? Should I have just done a smaller increase? But you backed yourself on this, which is why it paid off.
Well, because of the thing is that, like, if someone went into this and hadn't done the research, hadn't done the education, hadn't done it before, like, this isn't the first self-storage facility that I've turned around. It's just the first one I've turned around that I've done for myself, and I made multi-million dollars of equity out of it. So because I was able to mitigate the risk with knowledge, it made a big difference. So I was like, this is normal. I've done this before. Everything is going to be fine. We're making more money, So there'd be more vacancy on this property right now than there has been in the last 20 years. But I'm making double the amount of money because I'm charging the right rates,
Yeah.
So this is one of the things with old owners as well. They focus on the wrong metric. They focus on occupancy, right? Physical occupancy, where the metric you need to be focusing on is the economic occupancy. Yeah. So that basically means is what are the right rates you should be charging according to the market, and how below are you from those rates? So although this property had a very, very high physical occupancy, it had a disgustingly low economic occupancy. And that's what I want to see to be able to change the rates.
Yeah. Is that when you found the deal and you're like, hey, hold this, I'm going to go look at it? Is that because you saw just like basically the square meter size versus what rent it was getting, being like, this is out of whack?
Well, I just on the pictures, I could tell that there's an opportunity here. So it was an older rundown facility. It had very, very large, like it had a good amount of scale. So there was a large 3,000 square meter block. It was specifically made for self-storage. So it was mostly all drive up. There was over 130 tenants at the time. And I could tell that it had been mismanaged just from looking at the property, just from looking at the website. The website was from 1980s.
Yeah, and I imagine seeing the low yield, that 4.5%, being like, okay, I know it's at least 5, so let's see what we can do here.
But they didn't actually say that this is like a 4.5% return.
Did they not tell you the current revenue, or was it just kind of like
they did, but on if I had to pay the price that they wanted, it would have been like a 5.5% return, right? Yeah, okay. So it actually was a very good return, even for a person who was buying it at the normal rates, 5 million and under, if they had got a better deal. But I had to give them price to get my terms. So because I was like, I'm cool taking a 4.5%. I know this property is worth 9 million.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't explain. So I calculated that I could take it to 9 million, but the valuer actually put in phantom expenses, which was about $60,000 more than what it should be. And I knew what the expenses were because I managed it for 12 months. Yeah. And every $60,000 of like expenses actually cost you $1 million in value in a 6 cap, in a market rate of 6 cap. So it actually cost $1 million that extra. So realistically, if I had it revalued today, it'd probably be worth more than 8 million if you factored in the exact right expenses. Yeah. But I was still very, very happy with the $8 million value because
it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
It doesn't matter unless you're selling it. The value is still there to be retained.
Yeah, but the cool thing for me is like you've proved the concept for yourself now. Now I know you're doing rinse and repeat. You've got a couple other deals on the go at the moment. Do you want to maybe give a quick overview of those? You don't have to give too many details.
Yeah, so I've got another deal in the Central Coast. I've got 2 going in the Central Coast that I'm going to have, but I've got one that I've basically just shared on social media that I've started this one. It's exactly the same concept. Going to be adding millions of dollars of value to that one as well. But it's going to be a much simpler deal. So as I said before, the Wollongong deal had multiple other properties that the owner was purchasing, and that the owner's the seller. So the owner actually moved into a new retirement house, an actual house that he bought.
Mhm.
And the owner of that house was also buying another house that was a downsizer. So I was basically managing the agent, the original owner for the self-storage facility, the owners of the foster house that he was buying as well, and their agent as well. So it was a very complicated, convoluted deal where there are a lot of parties involved, and I had to sweeten the deal for everyone.
Yeah.
So in these new ones, there's none of that. So it's a lot more simple that it's like I'm buying it from these great guys that have had a real estate agent be managing the property. They're not running it like a self-storage business. They're actually just running it like a rental, like through a real estate agent, where they're not doing any like business marketing, no Google ads, no website, no dynamic pricing, nothing.
Yep.
So I'm taking that opportunity and basically just overlaying exactly what I did before, but it's much simpler. They're not relying on this money to buy another house and do all these kinds of things. So it's the process is repeatable, and it's a very good process. It's a very good way of doing it, because I literally went on settlement of this property. I made $2.3 million. Like that on settlement. I'd already done all the work. So that's the key, is like I de-risked the whole opportunity so much that I made so much money from it. Then like I just rinsed and repeated it. And the same thing's going to happen again. I'm going to have multi-million dollars of equity in this Central Coast deal once I settle it next year around September.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man, and congratulations formally again. Like what you've done is just ridiculous, and I've seen how long you've worked on all the other deals and the trials and tribulations, and people forget as well. Like you're head of strategy at Palise Property. You've got a full day job as well, and you're doing this on. I don't want to say on the side, but like you're doing this as well. Like I know how hard you've worked. So well done, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of moonlighting, a lot of taking calls and doing things. Like just yesterday, the power went out at one of the Central Coast properties. So I had to, instead of going to our team day, I had to go to the Central Coast to take care of why the power is out. Apparently there was a power surge, and the security systems are running on battery now, and that they were dying. And then there's a lot of different things that could come up when you're owning and managing large assets. And it comes back down to like, I actually there's a couple of guys that I've interviewed recently in the past with through the podcast, and they're like, owning a lot of stuff is just a big headache, and back then when you don't really you're not at that level, you're like, oh yeah, it must be so hard owning 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars of property, but with owning that kinds of assets, there's maintenance, there's things that always pop up. Just while we've been talking right now, Steve, I had about 3 or 4 missed calls from self-storage customers that want to talk to me about renting a unit. So this is very involved. This is not a passive investment.
It's funny you mention that, because one of our future podcast episodes is going to be about my portfolio, where I'm actually selling off all the residential to just buy a few blue chip commercial, because I don't want the headache of having a big portfolio. Like once you've got a handful of properties, after that, you're just collecting for the sake of bragging rights. That's it. Like no one actually cares if you've got 20, 30, 50 properties. Like you actually have to be happy yourself with what you got.
And building a large residential portfolio comes with so many headaches. Everything, there's something breaking every single week. A tenant's always happy. And usually the things that break on the property are because the tenants, misused it. That's why it's actually a lot better to own a one significantly large asset that's very hands off. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm putting together, and I'm now owning and managing $17.3 million of assets. If you had said to me 8 years ago, in 2024, you're going to have $17.3 million of assets that you're working with and owning, that would have been laughable. You and I, Steve, have come so far in our journeys just togetgether, so
I remember back in the day we went to a bookshop together, and you were telling me all these wealth books that you've read, and I'm like, come on, dreamer, what are you talking about? Prove me wrong.
But I think the key is if you never give up, you never fail, which has been the real thing for me. It's and belief in yourself that you can do it. And I want it so bad. So it just is. I could tear up now, like just thinking about it. Like it's just,
But the thing is, because you became so educated in it, you removed most of the risk, and that's where most people fall over. Like someone will listen to this and they go, "Oh, cool, I'm gonna go buy a self-storage facility for 5 mil," and it will not work out. But you knew, even like, okay, worst case is you're going to lose what after the 150 grand minus the rent that you got, like 100 grand or whatever the number. That was the risk. But you also knew you could very easily get it to say 6.5 mil,
Yeah.
and there'd be at least some form of buffer and options there. And that's the difference. I know how much you've educated on this and how many deals you've looked at and ones you've been involved with, and even some that have fallen over.
Yeah, that's right. And I had so many exit strategies. Like this is the thing as well, as and I think that I'm just giving you a very, very tip of the iceberg of how I set this up, because it took 4 months to actually set this deal up. Like back and forth with the owner, the agent, and everything. I had so many exit strategies. So like I could sell this option to someone, So when you have an option, it's a contract with a right to purchase. So if I create so much value in it, say I took it to 8 million, it's contracted for 5.7 million. I could have sold this contract to someone for 7 million, pocketing the difference, like as an option fee. So I had that, right? So I could have made multi-million dollars just from selling the option. I also could have put together a joint venture or a small scale syndicate to do this deal as well, right?
Yeah.
And I also could have brought in one, money partner as well, someone else. And to actually really like make sure I had every base covered, I actually negotiated to have a 3-year lease on this property as the managing agent.
Yeah.
So like as a managing operator. So I basically had all my bases covered, because if the deal totally fell over, I couldn't sell the option to someone. I couldn't get money partners in, which would be absurd. Yeah. I still was going to be able to manage the property, and the property returns $500,000 gross every single year. So I would have still made my money back 3 times of what I actually did. So my very, very worst case scenario was I make 3 times my money back over the next 3 years, and I still get all of, I could still manage the property, So there was so many different factors and exit strategies that I had to mitigate all of the risk, that really played into a part of how I made, how it was very easy for me to put that $150,000. And I think I didn't touch base on how I came to that price. The agent actually said, "Oh, can you put 250 down?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, no, I don't really want to do 250. How about 150?" And we negotiated down to that price. So it was very much a negotiation to where we got to. $150,000 was a pretty good option fee. For the Central Coast deals, I put a lot less down. I only put $50,000 down. Yeah. So like, it's considerable, but like realistically, I could lose $50,000 and be not even blink an eye. Like that's not a big deal. So, and I'm also making the same thing with those properties in the Central Coast. Is I'm increasing the rates. The price that I'm paying to the owner every single month is set in stone. Anything over and above that, I make as profit. So like right now, over my entire portfolio, I'm grossing like over $1.5 million of revenue just from the self-storage facilities.
Yeah, and if you let them pay themselves off over the next 10, 15 years, you've then got that as an income for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So basically what I'm going to do in future is a couple of deals down the line, I'll probably do a deal where I'm going to be selling 1 off or 2 off or whatever it is to reduce the debts on these other generational blue chip assets, right? Yeah. And then I'll kill the entire debt. And then that $500,000 per facility that's creating, that'll just be clear cash flow to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you and I talk about like doing, commercial property and investing. I think both of us were doing it for the same reasons. We want choices and freedom in our life. And we both achieved that. And now it's just nice to be able to help people do that as well. Like, cause I actually tell people when I'm speaking to them, for, a strategy call for Palise property, I'm like, I'm actually here cause I want to be. And
you don't have to be there.
I don't have to be talking to you. I'm actually here because I just really like talking about real estate and I really like helping people. And what else would I do? What else would I do with my time?
You're actually one of the few people who's like really, really like genuinely loves property. Like I love it
Yeah.
as a vehicle. You really actually love it as an asset
I
class.
I really like it's just everything to me. Like I just love it so much. I believe in it so much, and that's probably why a lot of people come into Palise Properties, because I'm able to tell them I've done it. I've done it for myself. Steve's done it for himself. I'm not selling you a dream. We've done this. So it's it's just really nice to be in a position now after so many years of hard work to be
Yeah.
able to help people like that.
Well, that's probably one of the last things I want to say. Like, building a passive income doesn't actually bring you happiness. People think, oh, once I get this passive income, but it gives you the choice to be happy
Yeah.
because you don't have to do things. Like you said, you're choosing to work because you want to work. And the same as me, like you can't sit on a beach all day, every day. When you've got that power of being able to say no to things, that's freedom.
Yeah, that's right. It's not about actually retiring or being able to stop working early. It's about having the choice to do that on your terms.
Yeah.
And I don't see any point on working, because I use property to get away from my day job. I was living my plan B. I was actually supposed to be a professional baseball player.
Yeah.
And I failed. I got very, very close, was a very, very good player. I just didn't have the velocity in my fastball to be able to get to the States.
Yeah.
So I failed at that. And that was 15, 20 years of my childhood spent on a
Yeah.
baseball field. And then I was living my plan B, working in the defense industry. I worked for Lindt Chocolate for a while, like running like teams and doing running projects and stuff like that through out of like warehouses and industrial properties. And that actually probably gave me a little bit more of an insight on how an industrial property works, because I spent my 20 years in a warehouse,
Yeah.
effectively. But I knew that I didn't want to. If I actually stayed here and finished my career here, I'd be very, very disappointed in the effort that I had put in, because I haven't reached my full potential. And
Yeah.
that's the thing I'm most scared about, is not putting the effort in to reach my full potential, and waking up on my deathbed, or waking up very close to when I'm about to die and saying, I didn't put the effort in that I should have, because I'm okay with failing,
Yeah.
but I'm not okay with not trying, giving it my best effort.
Well, most people should know that by now. Like, regret's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But like, just getting that choice is just the most powerful thing. Like, being able to be like you're having a whole month off because you're like, oh, don't want to work. Like, that is bloody powerful.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's the thing, is it's like, I'm at the stage now, and so are you. I only have so much time with my kids
Yeah.
until they're 18. They do their own thing. You only have them for such a short little window when they're young. I'm actually like what I've actually been thinking of what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to go as hard at real estate right now in this window while they're young, and
Yeah.
give myself more time now because I can.
Yeah.
Once they're 18, once they get out of school, once they do their own thing, then I'm up to my own devices and I can go as hard as I want. But
Yeah.
right now, I want to be able to have the time and availability to take them to swimming classes, go to the beach with them whenever I want.
Yeah.
I'm really optimizing for happiness and lifestyle now. So I'm actually in 2025, where at the end of 2025, in 12 months from now, we're going to be hopefully moving to Wollongong, closer to a nice beach location where we can optimize for lifestyle and not be in the rat race of Sydney anymore. Because I live in suburbia.
I know a nice 2-bedroom apartment in a self-storage facility in if you like.
It's already rented out. If I was single, I would live there for sure. I'm literally 5 minutes around the corner from the beach. It's perfect. But, you can't really, you could imagine trying to, convince the missus to move into a self-storage facility in a 2-bedroom apartment. I mean, we've got enough storage space, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Buy whatever she wants.
Yeah, that's right. But we're just really, I want to optimize for happiness now, and while the kids are young, because we want to have a third baby as well eventually. So it'll be nice to have the freedom now to help with that and do that more, and not be grafting. Because, mate, Steve, you and I have grafted for a long time, and only now I'm really reaping the rewards.
Yeah.
And I was banging my head against the wall for the first 5 years of this, not getting anywhere.
It's when people say, "Oh, yeah, you're lucky you got a passive income." I'm like, okay, it was not passive. It was a job for 12 years for me, working, grafting, doing renovations, all that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and now, you and I are really reaping the rewards from that, from all the hard work. And, putting out content like this definitely helps, where people, get a good understanding of what we do and how we do it and how we want to help, as well.
I think that's a perfect way to end it, man.
Awesome, dude.
Anyway, thank you so much for being the guest. We might get you back next week to do a bit more talking as well. This has been Andrew Bean and Steve Palise on the Commercial Property Investing Explained series. Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
dude. I'll do the 2-2. That's Steve.